Hello, this is your brain on drugs, and this is the punk rock psychiatrist. So today I'm doing another one of my update episodes. I started this in July. It was quick take number two. I started with the quick take number one, kind of just sampling it out, and we talked about one new drug that's come out recently, and then I did quick take number two, which was July updates, and I looked at some updates that have happened over the several months prior to that um, that I didn't have in my previous information that I've been putting together. And then now I'm doing another one, and these are updates that have come out either mostly since July or ones that I may have missed that had come out previous to that. Trying to make these quicker episodes, but the quick idea is more that like I'm hitting a lot of topics and I'm spending a short time on each one, not really diving deep, just kind of letting you know some of this stuff is just facts. It's just like this drug was approved, this happened. I can give a short opinion on it, but it's hard to give an opinion on something that just happened. So, with that, I've got like 14, 15 things that we're going to go into. I'm actually really excited. There's some really interesting stuff in here. These episodes actually take quite a bit of time for me to put together because I've already done um, basically I have the next 5 years of episodes pretty much already laid out. For a lot of the other stuff I just kind of clean them up, but for these, this is like all new information. It's new information to me, it's new information to the world, and I'm bringing it to you. So with that, let's get started with our September update episode. All right, so the first thing I wanted to talk about is ketamine. All right, so the FDA recently in August approved a product called KETARx. I'm not really sure how to pronounce this. It's all caps KETAR and then a lowercase x. So it's like ketamine prescription, ketamine RX, KETARx, KETARx. I have no idea. I really don't. Doesn't matter. This is an intramuscular formulation of ketamine. Ketamine, the approved version of ketamine that's on the market now, that's been out since like 1970, is an IV formulation, but IM has been used for a long time. Um, this approval was granted by the FDA for post surgical pain or post operative pain. Basically, the patient gets out of surgery, and I guess they get one shot of this. It just got approved, so like it's really hard to find like a lot of the details on it. Um, I spent a lot of time researching this because um, what this company to me seems a bit suspicious in what they're doing. I feel like this is just basically an effort to monetize something that we don't need. Um, they've come up with this formulation. It's basically something that we already have, and I've looked into this extensively to see like why is this approved by the FDA. Apparently, because it's IM and an IM has never been approved before, even though they've been used. Um, it's like a different formulation, and so they're sneaking in the door under that. But like this is the ketamine that we have on the market now. Like there's not really any difference with this product. It's probably going to come in a different dose, but like because it's like IVIM, you can it's milligrams per milliliters. You can like dose this how you want, right? Um, but like what they're doing a lot of sneaky stuff here, and so like I'm very untrusting of this. Like the more I kind of dig into these like these like what we would think of as kind of illicit substances that are now being like pushed on psychiatry, and like I hear a lot of psychiatrists like really excited about this stuff. I'm talking about um like LSD, psilocybin, mushrooms, ketamine. um I just don't. I'm not convinced that these are working, and like where a lot of people kind of like are down on the ADHD meds that we're in the middle of a season on, because they're like, oh, people are just seeking these out and they just want to get high. And it's just, this is not my experience. I've taken these before. I've given them to hundreds of people. They just don't make you high. Like I mean, you'd have to like take a lot. You'd have to like take it in a not not in pill form, like you'd have to like snort it or shoot it or something like that. It's just not it's just not something that I really see people abusing. And it's kind of status as schedule two, kind of. I think that's a bit strict. People are very strict about these amphetamines. But now it's like we want to open the door to something like ketamine, which is schedule three. And the side effects of ketamine are actually like much more disturbing than there aren't a whole lot of side effects with amphetamines. um, Maybe someone has difficulty sleeping, maybe they have agitation, maybe they have some withdrawal effects, which is like just kind of like irritability as it's wearing off. There's some weight concerns. I mean, most of the other stuff, substance abuse, cardiac stuff, is in my opinion, and even the growth stuff is way overblown. I just don't see the problems with those. And maybe that's because I have a lot of experience with them and I don't have the experience with ketamine. So like I'll give it that benefit of the doubt, but like you just see people getting attracted to this, like, and there's all these ketamine clinics like opening up all around the country. I mean, its effect size is quite good, which, that's, I mean, that excites me, but its effects wear off really quickly. There's case reports of people like, taking it and then not being able to get it, and then like trying to kill themselves. And is this like an effect of the fact that they were taking something that was helping with that and now it's not there, or is this like a withdrawal effect from the medication? And then, I mean, you've got hemodynamic concerns with blood pressure and stuff like that. You've got some hallucinations and disorientation, dizziness. It's I mean, there's a reason why this is given in a clinic, and then Spravato is given in a clinic as well, although they're working on like home dosing options, and that's part of what their plans are with this KETARx. Like, I bring this up because it's for post-surgical pain, so you're like, this is a psychiatry podcast, why do we care about this? Well, I mean, this is a drug we're using for psychiatry now. And this company, was it Pharmather, that they're actually seeking approval for depression, ALS, um, pain syndromes, dyskinesia and Parkinson's. Um, I saw something about Rett syndrome. They've gotten like this orphan drug approval from the FDA for like a whole bunch of conditions. And then it's like there was a study on Rett syndrome that was supposedly supposed to be going on. And then like it's been a couple of years. I haven't seen anything on it. I don't know. Is it still going on? Like, there's just been no word on it. Is this fizzled out? See, what these drug companies do is they do these trials and then they announce it and they submit it. And then you never see the results because it didn't work. And then this never gets published. And we never find out what the actual results were. Same thing with this like dyskinesia and Parkinson's disease. They were doing some sort of phase 2 trial on this. And then it just kind of like they actually stopped this trial. We don't know why. Probably because it wasn't working or it was causing some sort of problem, right? And it's like, and the other thing is, I'm looking for the data on like the approval for this post surgical pain. It doesn't exist. And it's like somehow there's some sort of loophole in this process where they didn't have to do any kind of clinical trial. Like, usually when you do the kind of approval that they did, you have to show that it's because it's a drug that's already out there. Even though you're doing it for a different condition, you have to show that it's equal to other drugs that do the same thing. I found nothing. What I found was a bunch of studies that have been done over the last couple decades and several meta-analyses that have been done in the last few years, um, but nothing from this company. Like, it's so I don't I could find nothing on the FDA's website. And when you read these companies that release the drugs, when you read their like reports on their websites and things, it's all BS. Like, I feel like if this stuff was actually working and actually effective, it wouldn't sound like they were blowing smoke. You know what I mean? Like, it was just like, oh, this is effective. It's like, for what's your data? They don't report it. And it's like the FDA approved this new treatment. And it's like, even when the FDA approves things and you look at data, sometimes the improvement is like so microscopic. It's like significant. Remember, we've talked about this before, but it like isn't even that. It's like not clinically relevant, right? So, and then here we have them with like, they didn't even, as far as I can tell, they didn't even do anything. Like I cannot like there must be something out there. Whatever it is, it's not available. It's not published. Like all they have is a bunch of vague statements, and every article is about the vague statements, and there is nothing about the actual data. There are reports on data for this actually helping post-surgical pain, so I'm not going to say there aren't. It's that is out there, but it's not from this company that's got this drug approved. So like I don't, and so they're what they're trying to do is there's actually a shortage of ketamine, and so when there's a shortage, compounding pharmacies can get involved. We're going to talk a lot about that when we talk about GLP-1s, but these compounding pharmacies essentially can make these drugs that are in low supply, and then they sell them for a lot cheaper because they're basically producing a drug as a almost like a generic, even though it's branded, but like they're allowed to do it because it's in low supply. And I mean, we don't want people running out of medications that they're on, but like we're also not supposed to be starting I mean, you really shouldn't be starting new patients on medications that are in low supply. Like really this whole compounding thing is supposed to bridge the gap for people that are already on it, but especially with like the GLP-1s because they're so effective and popular, and they're like abused. I mean, people use these that don't have they're not even overweight. Like we'll get into that when we talk about obesity. I think they're great drugs, but I think, of course, when you have something as amazing as this, as like a GLP-1 that is like it's a fantastic medication. I think that GLP-1 medications are maybe the most important, amazing medications of the last gosh knows how long 30 years. Like I don't even want to posit a guess. Like they're incredible. um a lot of these meds that come out, they're just like lackluster, maybe a little bit of benefit, but the GLP-1s, they're fantastic. And they don't just address a medical problem, they address like a psychological problem. People don't want to be fat, right? And so I don't know, but then you get this compounding involved because like so there's such high demand, and then you get basically people that don't need it, that like doctors will write them a script, insurance won't cover it because they're not like entitled to the medication because they don't have the condition, but the doctor writes them a script anyway and they pay out of pocket, and then you've got all these people on this stuff, right? And the same thing is going on with ketamine. You got this being given out willy-nilly, clinics all over the place. It's not well regulated. These compounded pharmacies, it's not a perfect product. And so the benefit here with this KETARx is that this is like a more regulated product. But so what this company's trying to do is they're trying to like boost the supply and get this like actually approved for conditions that, because it's only approved for general anesthesia. That's it. It's used for other stuff. And this, because it's used off label, we're running out of it. But now that they're going to start getting approval for things like the post-operative pain, they're going to push out the compounding. It's going to drive up the price. They're going to make a lot of money. And then we're already seeing that a couple of the conditions that they've like trying to get approval for, the trials have been stopped, or reports aren't even coming out. But their aim is it's to target depression, right? Because that's like, I mean, post-operative pain, you're going to use that like what, once, twice. But with depression, you're going to have these people on this forever. And so like, I don't know. I'm not convinced that this is going in the right direction, but I'm still optimistic because we don't have good treatments for treatment resistant depression. A lot of stuff we have just doesn't work that well. Um, I'd like to see more lithium, honestly, for that. Um, where I don't know, why is somebody not going out there and getting this type of approval for lithium? Like a drug that's already out there for, I mean, it's not approved for depression, major depressive disorder. It's approved for bipolar disorder. Someone should like get it approved for major depressive disorder and monetize it or something, or just like, how about we just use it? You know what I mean? It's like we don't need some company benefiting financially from this when it's something that already exists that we're like legally using off label, that's inexpensive. This is just a means of like driving up our healthcare costs, and like a, you know being that I've kind of dub myself the punk rock psychiatrist. And if you listen to the first episode, like I talk about my ethos, and like one is kind of this anti-corporate stuff. And so like a lot of my angles in here is that like I'm trying to save the medical system money by my message. My message of, one, I don't want to overly drug people, and two, I don't want to like drive up healthcare costs whenever we're like not really benefiting people, or it's like really a marginal benefit. All right. So I'm very suspicious of this, but I want you to know about it, and I want you to know that this is like this has been going on. I mean, we've been talking about ketamine for depression for like 20 years, um, but it's starting to get approved, and that moves on to my next point, which is also related to ketamine. There's a product. This is by NRX. I think it's NRX Pharmaceuticals. This is another company. So the product is NRX100. Doesn't have a name yet. This is IV ketamine for suicidality and depression. It's been fast tracked by the FDA, not approved yet, right? But they fast tracked it because, I mean, once again, this is a product that's on the market already. We have data on this for this. I don't know why someone hasn't like figured this out by now, but this company's doing it. And then I just want to make the point of S-ketamine. So S-ketamine is approved for MDD with suicidality, not for. So you guys may be thinking, well, that one's out there already. Now, this NRX 100 is going to be the first, if this actually gets approved, it will be the first ketamine product. It will be the first antidepressant of any kind that is actually FDA approved for suicidality. Now, S-ketamine was tested in suicidal patients. So normally antidepressants they exclude suicidal patients. Um, and so that's why no other antidepressants have that on there. But esketamine actually was tested for patients that had suicidality. And what was found was it didn't help. It helped the depression, but it did not help the suicidality. And so if you carefully read their approval, it's MDD with suicidality. So they're basically saying that you can use this in patients that have suicidality. And it's like we use all of our drugs in patients with suicidality. They've obviously put this in there to try and trick you into thinking that it helps suicidality. And this is the thing that I absolutely can't stand about this stuff. And this is the stuff the FDA should like stand up and be like, no, I'm technically you're right, but this is misleading. And we don't want you to mislead patients. We want you to make it clear that this does not help with suicidality, because I thought this until recently. um and I was under this and I'm supposed to be the expert, right? So esketamine does not improve suicidality. Ketamine does, right? So this IV ketamine is going to be the first approved for suicidality. And so you may be wondering, how are they sneaking through, right? So with the product that's already approved, because like we can't do a new lithium, right? Well, the KETARx is IM ketamine, and there's no approved IM ketamine, so that one can get approved as a separate, and then they get to skip all the safety stuff. They don't have to do phase 1, 2 trials and a lot of this other stuff. Well, maybe they do some phase 2, maybe they don't do phase 3. I don't know. There's almost nothing on this thing. I saw a phase 2 announced for Rets, and I saw a phase 2 that was canceled for dyskinesia and Parkinson's. I didn't see anything else, but apparently they just got approved for post-surgical pain. Um, that's why I'm so suspicious, because it looks like they've actually done almost no evaluations. So we can't actually see how well their product worked in their own trial. They didn't spend that money. They're just like taking shortcuts to try and like bilk people. That's what I think. Because the fact is, we could use ketamine for post-surgical pain before this product came along. The fact that the FDA has approved this is just going to make that more expensive. That's all it's doing. It was already available. This is just making it more expensive. It's not, this is nothing new. There's nothing new here. I don't care that the FDA has approved it. We already know that it can help. We don't need an FDA approved product, in my opinion. And so, like, And now with this NRX100, so what they've done is they've removed this product. It's I think it's like thelonium or something like that. It's like a preservative that's in IV ketamine that apparently the FDA has made some statements of this is not a safe product, but like they haven't forced people to remove it. Um, and I think there's some thoughts that like, oh, well, usually when people get ketamine, it's just during surgery, so it's just a little bit exposure. So essentially, this company's argument is we've taken it out and we've proven that the ketamine is just as stable without this preservative in it. And the FDA has already said this preservative is not good for us. So our product doesn't have it. Not only that, but they've also submitted to the FDA to ban any ketamine that contains it. See, so what they're trying to do here is they're trying to corner the market on IV ketamine and get all the cheap IV ketamine that we're using now taken off the market so that they can profit from their new branded product that they haven't got approved yet but's been fast tracked. All right. And to me, this is just shady. This is just business practices. This is not health. I mean, this is the kind of stuff, we've got our current government right now that I won't comment on because I don't want to bring politics into the podcast. But that they're saying that there's all these things that the medical system has been doing that are not good for patients, and we need to make changes that are. And they're focusing on things like dyes, which I'm in favor of getting rid of. But like, is that really the worst thing that's going on? There's so many things that need to be fixed. These kind of practices need to be fixed. Will they? No, because there's corporations making billions of dollars off of them, driving up healthcare costs, making healthcare unaffordable. And those of you listening in other countries are like, I mean, if you're not aware by now, the United States bankrupts people constantly. Thousands of people go bankrupt because they can't pay for their healthcare bills. And this happens nowhere else. And part of the reason for it is practices like this. You know, I mean, we already have these products. We're already using them. Is what they're doing. That they would argue with me and say, "Oh, this is a safer, more controlled product." And it's like, yeah, and it's what going to cost 10 times more? I have no idea. So I'm not. And it just makes me suspicious. I feel like they're just trying to profit from people's desire to take illicit substances. Um, I'd like to see some, better data on the use of this stuff. But like at the same time, like I am excited about the use of ketamine for like really severe cases of depression. We have good data to show that the effect size is really high. It is being used now, and it is kind of not controlled, and like there aren't standard doses that were kind of guidelines to use. So I think we do need something like this, but when the way that they're doing this to try and like basically get even more money for themselves by, oh, let's have these other products banned and let's get a new product approved that we don't even do our own tests on. To me, I just, it's shady. I don't feel like it's being done for the good of patients. It's being done for like making billions of dollars. And we're basically taking a product that's cheap and already exists. So I feel like there's a better way to do this. But with that, I will move off of my ketamine soapbox and move on to my next topic. Let's talk about some new medications for sleep apnea. I've got some real complaints about this as well. So these are still in trials. There's a couple that I found. They both contain atomoxetine, and this is why this is interesting. So I think of sleep apnea as something that I deal with because it's a rule out, right? Like if someone's got depression, poor sleep, you want to kind of check for sleep apnea. We often refer patients for polysomnograms to look for sleep apnea as psychiatrists. And here we have our medications they're now being tested as a treatment. Currently, there's only one medication that is FDA approved for sleep apnea, and that's tirzepatide, otherwise known as Zepbound, otherwise known as Mounjaro. It's the GLP-1 receptor agonist that I'm talking about that on the obesity series I'm doing in the season 3 obesity medicine. So that's mostly probably because of weight loss. I mean, we don't 100% know if that's the reason. So tirzepatide, the only medication that is FDA approved for sleep apnea, and these are some that may be coming out on the horizon, and I think probably will. And I think one of these pretty soon. Other than that, you've got CPAP, you've got mouth guards, you've got um, some stimulators of tongue muscles and pharyngeal muscles. So prior to tirzepatide, all we had were these kind of apparatuses that people could use. And then with tirzepatide, we had the first medication, and now we have these. The first one is atomoxetine mixed with, get ready for this, R-oxybutynin. So oxybutynin, it's an anticholinergic medication used for bladder spasms, for overactive bladder. Of course, they have to get the R enantiomer, the right-handed enantiomer of oxybutynin, so that they can have a new product, and they can say, well, you can't just prescribe someone atomoxetine and oxybutynin because, see, this is another one of these techniques that they use, because they'll say, oh, well, that's not what we tested. We didn't test atomoxetine oxybutynin. We tested atomoxetine R-oxybutynin. And you can't get R-oxybutynin unless you get it in our product that's mixed with atomoxetine. So, now you have to pay extra for our product. And I would just basically say, I don't care. I'll just give them the oxybutynin and see what happens. I don't need your expensive branded product. Thank you for proving that this works. And I'll just prescribe them 2 medications that are really cheap. Um, but sometimes you run into and this is another fault in our system. Sometimes the insurance, they'll pay for the combo product, which costs a lot more, but they won't pay for the 2 individual products because they're not FDA approved. If there's some off-label treatment that's really cheap, usually insurance companies will just be like, all right, I'll pay for it. But ironically, they actually will spend more money on a combo product than they will on the 2 constituent parts. I mean, another ridiculous thing that should be fixed about our medical system that's costing us billions of dollars for no reason. Um, so, what's going on here? I mean, you're probably wondering, a medication that we use for ADHD mixed with one we use for overactive bladder treats obstructive sleep apnea. What's going on? So, the idea here is that um, I don't know. I wrote the word dilates pharyngeal muscles. I mean, it's not dilates. Um, it tenses up the pharyngeal muscles during sleep, and this is what atomoxetine does. And it's like, why is this R-oxybutynin in there? And so apparently, it enhances what atomoxetine does. That's what they say, and I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, it also does this, or it somehow makes atomoxetine work better? Like, they don't really say. And in my opinion, from what I'm seeing, atomoxetine is the drug that works. The oxybutynin or R-oxybutynin or whatever the heck it is just kind of thrown in there to make money. It's like, well, we don't want people to just give people atomoxetine. We have to make it a different product so we can get it branded. So we're going to mix it with something else, and then we're going to create a new version of that product, the R enantiomer version, so we can make it extra hard for people to just make this on their own. But from what I'm reading, I would just do atomoxetine, and I'll tell you why. But I wouldn't do this yet. That's the other thing. So I think it's questionable what effect this R-oxybutynin has. And of course, what they say about the R-oxybutynin versus oxybutynin is that it's um, that it has less side effects. This, and maybe it does, but of course it does. Then why don't we have our oxybutynin now? And the people that are taking oxybutynin, why haven't we been giving them, if there's been this lower side effect version for the last 20 years that this product's been out, why the heck haven't we had this oxybutynin? Why is it just coming up now? So it's very suspicious to me. They often hold these enantiomers back that they know work better. I'm talking about S-citalopram, citalopram. I'm talking about armodafinil versus modafinil. Yeah, those enantiomers are better. They do have less side effects. And on those two products, I know that for a fact. With this one, I mean, this is the first I've heard of our oxybutynin. We don't really have anything on it. It's not even prescribable yet. This product isn't even approved. And it's mixed with atomoxetine. So how would you even test it versus oxybutynin? It would be hard. So, but with those other products, they basically put this out. They know the enantiomer is better, and they wait until their patent's expiring on their other med to release it. That's another thing we should stop. If there's a better product out there, but they're basically, I want to milk this one for as much as I can, then milk the next one, rather than just release the one works the best with the least side effects from the beginning, because it's all about money. It's not about health, and that disturbs me. Okay. Luckily now, escitalopram is off patent, so I freely prescribe it and never use citalopram. So with this one, um, there's a few trials that have been done. One is this Mariposa, which means butterfly in Spanish. Phase 2, it showed a 50% reduction in AHI. That's the apnea hypoxia index. That's the main thing that we use with sleep apnea to determine whether it's whether you have it or not, and whether it's mild, moderate, or severe. But this was a phase 2 trial. It was only a month. Um, and then interestingly, I pulled this trial up, and there was almost no difference between. So there was an atomoxetine 75 milligrams, and then they tried a 2.5 of R-oxybutynin, a 5 of R-oxybutynin, and then no R-oxybutynin, and then a placebo. And then so the the two doses of oxybutynin, the 2.5 versus the 5, they made no difference. It was the same results. And then when you took the R-oxybutynin out and you had just atomoxetine, the difference was like minuscule. It was like maybe a 45% improvement versus a 50% improvement. It was basically the difference of like one. It was like AHI dropped from 20 to 10, and then 20 to 10, and then on on atomoxetine alone, it was like 20 to 11. So basically no difference. And so to me, that suggests that like we don't really need the R-oxybutynin in there. And I don't even like, why do we want to be giving someone an anticholinergic medication? We know what the side effects of those are like. They're not good. And so what we're giving this person a tiny dose of R-oxybutynin, we think it's actually doing something. I'm not convinced. All right, so let's move it on. We got 2 phase 3 trials. We've got the SYNERGY, AIR, right? Breathing. ALOSA makes sense. SYNERGY, phase 3. I've got top line results. This recently came out. It shows a 46.8% AHI reduction versus a 6.8% AHI reduction on placebo at 26 weeks. Versus so this is longer than the 1 month. This is like half a year, but the paper hasn't been released yet, so all they've released are these top line results. So I don't know if they tested it versus atomoxetine. Are they going to bury that now that they saw in the phase 2 trial that it actually worked the same, and that people could probably just prescribe atomoxetine? So like those results just top line. And then there's another one that is a 1-year trial called the Lunaro AIR again. It's which that one's underway. We have no results on that, but that's going on. So I am kind of excited about atomoxetine. I'm not very excited about the R-oxybutynin that's been added to it. All right, so there's another medication that's been looked at for OSA, and this is atomoxetine mixed with trazodone. So to me, this one makes more sense. So you've got the atomoxetine, which apparently helps with this, like keeping your airway open, tightening up those pharyngeal muscles. And then trazodone is just there to help you sleep, which, it kind of makes sense because atomoxetine is a stimulant. It's a norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor. Do we really want to take a stimulating medication? I mean, I don't know. Is this being dosed at night? Because if it is, that seems kind of problematic. All right. So doesn't it? Doesn't that seem problematic? Kind of does to me. Um, and so the oxybutynin is not really going to help you with sleep. So this trazodone was looked at, and one reason why this was looked at was because the atomoxetine oxybutynin combination um, showed that it lowered the arousal threshold, and so basically it makes it harder for people to wake up. I mean, which I would think trazodone would do as well, but apparently this did not have that effect. And like if you have sleep apnea, not being able to have arousal whenever you have a hypopneic event, your oxygen saturation is dropped, right? See, AHI is measuring um, whether you had an event where you stopped breathing or whether your oxygen dropped and then you had an arousal, right? But if your arousals are being suppressed despite low oxygen, that's bad, because the arousal is what wakes the patient up so that they breathe, right? So you're with an apneic event, you can't breathe at all, and then the patient wakes up and breathes, but they usually don't remember it. It's just for a brief moment. That's why they like in the middle of the night, then they go back to sleep, because when you wake up, you tighten those muscles up, and that's what makes your sleep quality poor with sleep apnea, right? Because you're like waking up over and over and over, and when you've got like an AHI of like 40, that means that you're like waking up 40 times per hour, um essentially, right? You're either stopping breathing or waking up in response to low oxygen 40 times, and I've seen 80. But severe is usually like over, I think it's over like 25. I don't have that exact number on hand, but it's something like that. So 20, I mean, between like 5 from 5 it's mild. Less than 5 you don't have it. So like if you have less than 5 per hour, that's normal. It's probably more normal to have almost none. I had a sleep study and I think mine was zero point 0.5, so I had like zero point 0.5 events per hour, which is like not. I mean, so this can happen to normal people, but if it doesn't happen that much, um, it's not a problem. So anyway, if you can't wake up in response to the hypoxia, then you're not going to be able to take the breath, and that's going to be worse. And I think they were seeing that with that atomoxetine or oxybutynin. So then they looked at this atomoxetine trazodone, and then that didn't happen. But it did not improve total sleep time. It worsened, and then the patients had worsened self-reported sleep quality. Like they had an improvement in their AHI, and I'm going to tell you what those results are in a second. But like, despite their AHI improving, they did not sleep more, and they actually felt like their sleep quality was worse. So that's not very promising. And those, whether that happened or didn't happen, wasn't reported in that R-oxybutynin atomoxetine combination. So just because this is improving the AHI, people, I mean, which is good, because that improves your cardiovascular health. You're less likely to get heart attacks and strokes if your sleep apnea is controlled, and your sleep apnea is controlled if your AHI goes down. But if people feel like their sleep is worse, they're not going to take it, right? So I got a couple of trials came out in 2023, a phase 2, and these results are confusing. Unfortunately, I could not unlock the entire article to read the details. All I could access was the abstracts, and the abstracts are often misleading. They tell you what they want you to know, and they bury like the actual results in the paper that you often can't get access to, and then see that they've misled you. And this sounds misleading to me. So they said there was an AHI of 28.3 for the atomoxetine trazodone combination and 42.7 for placebo. First, what did that start with? Like, we don't know what the initial one was, so they don't tell us how much it dropped. At least on the other one, they told us how much the AHI went down, and they told us what the AHI went from and to. With this one, we don't know where it started. And then, like, the combination pill uh, of an AHI of 28.3, I mean, the placebo 42.7. So maybe you think that, like, the AHI started probably above that, because placebo always helps a little bit no matter what it is. But it only went, but then you only got a 28.3. That's still severe. So that's like, no, there's no bueno. Like, that's still not worth using. Like, it's an improvement, but it's still severe. Like, this patient still needs a CPAP. It did not fix the problem. Like, you wouldn't just be like, oh, 28.3, oh, that's good, I'm going to keep this. No, that's terrible. So, like, that's not very impressive. And then I found another 2023 study, and it showed this one was better. And this one also kind of confusing results. Placebo 18.2. So it sounds, and then trazodone 7.4. So it sounds like they gave them a placebo. It moved it to 18.2, from where I have no idea. And then they gave them trazodone and went down to 7.4. Like, this is just not a normal way of doing a trial or reporting results. Whenever I see results that are reported on trials in a way that doesn't make any sense, it makes me suspicious that they didn't get the results they wanted and they're trying to polish a turd. That's what it tells me. And then that trial also checked a combination of atomoxetine with limborexant, a medication I actually take for sleep. That I actually, this is I can't wait to get into insomnia. Probably be a year from now. Hopefully this medication is still working for me. But this is like one of the best medications I've ever taken for sleep. This is a DORA, a dual orexin receptor antagonist. It's the second one, limborexant. The first one, it's underdosed. The FDA forced them to put the dose too low, and I think that's why these DORAs got kind of like not talked about, because the first one, suvorexant, wasn't that good. Limborexant is actually a lot better, and now we have duratorexant, um, which is shorter acting. So, like, if you find limborexant too long acting, you can switch to duratorexant. We'll go into that in detail later. But in this study, they actually saw no improvement on limborexant, but there was the improvement with trazodone. Um, but the combo one. So, but what they did was, and this is interesting. So they gave an atomoxetine trazodone combination, and then it dropped down to 7.4. But then they gave a limborexant combination with atomoxetine, and they said no difference. I couldn't find the actual numbers. The abstract didn't report it. It's kind of, which is kind of interesting to me, because it's like, isn't the atomoxetine the thing that's improving the AHI? Then why would the combination with trazodone have such an effect, but the limborexant one wouldn't? So is trazodone actually helping out here? So this whole thing is kind of confusing to me. So, like, I would be suspicious of this, but the good news is for you, this is not like prescribable yet, and I wouldn't prescribe it. But however, um, this could be coming out in the future. Atomoxetine, combined with roxybutynin or trazodone, this may be a treatment. I was initially kind of excited about it when you see this like 50% reduction and things like that. So, like, I'm kind of um, cautiously pessimistic on this one. Like, I see some stuff that kind of, like, the fact that they're using the R-oxybutynin, and the fact that it looks like this oxybutynin didn't even help at all in that phase 2 trial, but they're putting it in there anyway. And then the fact that it looks like the atomoxetine's helping in the combo with R-oxybutynin, but then when they tested it with trazodone and limborexant, it didn't seem to do anything when it was mixed with limborexant. And then when it was mixed with trazodone, it did work, but they had worsened self-reported sleep quality. So very mixed results here. Um, it'll be interesting to see the final phase 3 like results on that Synergy trial, and then whenever Lunergy finishes, this is definitely happening. This is going to get resulted. My guess is the FDA is going to end up approving this, and that's why I'm like telling you about it. So it's definitely something to know about. All right, so let's go on to the next page I have. And, like, this is taking longer than I thought, so I'm probably going to break this up into 2 separate updates, and I'll release it on 2 Saturdays. So the next one. This is a medication that we've had, yet another medication that has existed. Like, we haven't talked about any new medications yet. These are all medications so far that are already out there, but are getting rebranded for other indications. So last month, cyclobenzaprine, the muscle relaxant, otherwise known as Flexeril, was approved for fibromyalgia under the name Tonmya. 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 All right. So the medications that we currently have approved for fibromyalgia are pregabalin Lyrica in 2007, duloxetine Cymbalta in 2008, and then milnacipran Sovella in 2009. And we've talked about Cymbalta and or duloxetine and milnacipran because those are antidepressants. I've mentioned pregabalin. I'm going to talk about it when we talk about anxiety. It's a medication that actually is approved for anxiety in Europe, not in the United States. Um, and it's the other approved agent for fibromyalgia. However, the guidelines, interestingly, those are the three approved drugs we have, and now we have cyclobenzaprine added to the list. The interesting thing is, it's the first medication that's recommended for fibromyalgia by the guidelines is actually amitriptyline, the tricyclic antidepressant. It's not one of the approved agents. And then the alternative was cyclobenzaprine. So that's already been out there. We've already been like prescribing this. Once again, this is a treatment that already exists, that's already happening, that some company has decided to monetize. And pray tell, what changes have we made to cyclobenzaprine to allow us to get it approved for something else without running through the entire phase 1, 2, 3 trials that we would normally have to do for a drug? What shortcut have we taken here? Well, we've made it a sublingual, so we've changed the formulation and we've changed the dose, 2.8 milligrams. The lowest dose of the pill form is 5. Comes in like 5 10s, I think 5s and 10s, maybe, and 7.5s maybe. So this is like basically break the pill in half, but don't break it in half because it's 2.8. That won't be enough, right? This is like when Silenor came out, the doxap, and now Silenor is actually generic. So if you want to prescribe the 3 to 6 milligrams of doxepin, and like for the longest time, I just gave the generic 10 milligrams doxepin. It's like, no, only the 3 and the 6 is approved for sleep. And it's like, okay, 10 is a low dose. I'm not concerned. Like, that was the lowest dose ever made for depression. It's a starting dose. I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm not having this patient's insurance or them have to pay 10 times the price. And it's actually more. Like Silenor was like $1 a pill and doxepin was like a penny a pill. It was like 100 times more. And that's what they do. And it's like, oh, we've made a pill that's like, and you can't cut doxepin in half because it's a capsule, but you can open it and pour out part if you wanted to actually take a lower dose. So it can be done. So this is another thing. We've made it into a sublingual and we've made a dose that is obscure. When you could, in fact, just give the 5 milligram pill, but we have to monetize this. And it's something, like I said, we're already doing. We were doing, amitriptyline was kind of first line, and then Flexeril or cyclobenzaprine was second line. Other options that are alternatives that aren't FDA approved, other TCAs. I tend to favor other TCAs over amitriptyline because even on the lowest dose of amitriptyline, I still notice that patients complain about dry mouth, if not constipation, and they're just not going to want to take it for the rest of their lives and deal with that problem. And if you give them disipramine or normipramine, or sorry, nortriptyline, you just have way less of those anticholinergic effects. And in fact, they have more noradrenergic activity, which is probably what's helping with this anyway. And honestly, if we talk about fibromyalgia, none of these treatments work very well. They're all pretty poor. All right. Like, they're all barely better than placebo to begin with. These patients end up on like a truckload of medications. And then some of the general guidelines are like, well, let's use duloxetine if they have fatigue. Let's use pregabalin if they have sleep problems. right? Because some of these help, a little bit more calming, sedating. Some are a little bit more, activating. Amitriptyline at low dose is probably more sedating. So, I've taken cyclobenzaprine. I absolutely hate this medication for personal use. Um, it just made me feel like crap. Like, it did not help with sleep, and it made me feel like crap for almost the entire next day. You probably get used to it, but like it also didn't help with the problem I was taking it for. So I don't know. And I've seen lots of patients on this, and every time I spot medications like cyclobenzaprine out there, and I like ask them like, is this doing anything? They always tell me no. I mean, always might be an overstatement, but I've had very few patients that have said, no, no, I like this. Can I keep it? Maybe three. Um, Maybe you all out there have had better experiences, but sometimes I think that providers see the meds that they prescribe with rose colored glasses. Like they give them the med, and then if the patient gives any kind of positivity at all, they don't see the negativity. They're like, well, the patient complained about things, but all they heard was that they had like one less spasm in the last week, and they're like, it worked. Like I just see that, like, because I'll read their notes and it's like, oh, it's working well, and then I ask the patient and it's like it's not working well, and I'm just like, is this happening to me? Am I prescribing stuff that I think's working, and then they talk to someone else and tell them it's not working, or did they just not feel comfortable telling the doctor that prescribed them the med that they don't think it helped, but they don't mind telling a doctor that didn't prescribe the med that it didn't help? I try to get the truth out of patients. I'm like, I'm not married to this. I don't care. I just want to get you better. Like, is this working? Do we need to change it? But I'm sure they still like feel uncomfortable telling me the truth. But like, for all you out there that are prescribed this, ask patients that it was prescribed by someone else and see what their responses are. Mine are overwhelmingly negative. And then there's all these like adverse effects, right? Like I said, it's a CNS depression. It makes you kind of feel out of it for a long period of time. It gives you that like groggy feeling like trazodone does. It's a potential risk for serotonin syndrome. It's a potential risk for like inducing like mania if the patient has bipolar disorder because it's serotonergic. I mean, psychobenzaprine is I did talk about it briefly. It's kind of a tetracyclic, but it works very similar to a tricyclic, aka which is why we use amitriptyline for this disorder as well. It's got anticholinergic effects as well, right? Because it's like a tricyclic, and then it's got some pretty serious drug interactions. um, it's got D ratings for most of the CNS depressants, but it's got some X ratings that were kind of crazy to me. It has a lot of X ratings. So this is like, do not mix these two meds together. One of them was azolastine, which is a nasal like an allergy medication. It's like an um, antihistamine, but it probably has anticholinergic effects, and it's like a nasal spray, which is usually like local and not systemic. So like I didn't see an explanation like why is it an X rating with azolastine nasal spray. Patients can just buy that at the store. An X is bad, so like if it's an X, I'd like more explanation. I probably maybe I need to dig more to find that. And then glycopyrrolate. I mean, this is another one. This is an anticholinergic medication. It's got an X rating. Not all anticholinergic medications had X ratings. It was just these specifically. And then get this one, hydroxyzine. That's not even an anticholinergic medication. It's an antihistamine. Why? I mean, it's a CNS depressant, but like very mild. And I mean, there's way worse ones that had D ratings. So like, I don't know where this X rating with cyclobenzaprine mixed with hydroxyzine is coming in. So, and I can really see somebody on this combo. Like how many patients are on cyclobenzaprine? Like you see it all the time. And then what? You start hydroxyzine for some sleep issues or some like some anxiety, and then you've given an X-rated combination. I mean, I wouldn't suspect this is that big of a problem, but I also wouldn't just write off an X rating. It's got an X rating with MAOIs. That makes sense. Serotonin syndrome risk. Um, Also, an X rating with olopatadine nasal, which is another allergy medication, which is another, like, I've seen olopatadine eye drops at the, like, over the counter. I don't know if I've seen nasal. I don't know if the nasal formulation is over the counter. It certainly might be. Um, that's a pretty standard medication that I don't really think of having major interactions, but to have an X with cyclobenzaprine, and then potassium chloride and citrate, which are used, which I mean, that's like pretty benign sounding medication, but apparently combining it with cyclobenzaprine increases ulceration risk. Um, uh, so there's some. I mean, I think this is probably why, like, in like cyclobenzaprine in Flexeril form for muscle spasms is always said, don't use more than, like, was it like 2 weeks, 4 weeks? This is probably why, because it's got all these risks, and like if someone's on it long term, that could be a problem. But this Tonmya for fibromyalgia, this is certainly not going to be limited to a month. This is probably for chronic use, so you're really going to have to look out for all of these problems with it. You see what I'm saying here? So I don't like this. Um, Honestly, I'm just, fibromyalgia, just doesn't respond to anything. A lot of these patients end up on opiates, which is inappropriate. I'm honestly not sure the best way to deal with this. The guidelines are amitriptyline, then cyclobenzaprine, but and then maybe pregabalin, duloxetine. I might favor duloxetine because, like, there's a lot of depression associated with it, but at the same time, I haven't really seen giving these patients antidepressants helping much. So, I mean, that it's a tough one. It's a tough one. So another new medication. So that we've talked about, one, two, three, four. That's our fifth one we've talked about, and they're all old drugs that are being, like, repurposed slash monetized for something else with kind of questionable benefit and questionable motives. Um, let's talk about. I got three. These are quicker ones. All right, I had a lot to say about those, but let's do these three quicker ones, and then let's stop this one, and then I'll do the rest of the updates. I'll do a part 2 September updates. So we've got nelavaptan. This is interesting. So this is a selective vasopressin, uh, which is V, type 1B receptor antagonist. You may know it. You may know the Vaptans, um, as they're used in the kidneys for SIADH, which, it's um, for issues that, you've got sodium and fluid issues there, and there's a, what is it? What's that condition? Um, is it diabetes insipidus that causes this issue? I may be off. I'm just thinking off the cuff right there. But all right, so the Vaptams are used, for stuff that doesn't really happen that often. We don't use them that much. But this Vaptan is for this V1B receptor antagonist. So this receptor is actually not in the kidneys. It's in the central nervous system, and it's there were results, phase 2b trials for major depressive disorder, of all things. You're thinking, wow, like, so we actually have a type of vasopressin receptor that's found in the central nervous system, and apparently antagonizing it might help with depression. And so far, the trials look pretty spectacular. Effect size 0.44. That's better than most. And this is what's even more interesting, um, but also concerning a little bit to me. So there was a genetically defined subgroup, and the effect size on them was 0.55. So this company has not released any of these results. Like, I can't look through anything. All I have is what I just told you. So because it's all proprietary and stuff. So they basically say that they have some sort of proprietary data. This is how, like in psychiatry, we're trying to do, this like personalized medicine, which I think is a fantastic goal, but I think that it's not ready for prime time. But like people are trying to profit off the idea before it's ready for prime time. It's kind of like those psychogenomic tests that we talked about before, that like most of that stuff in there is probably not that helpful to you, and you probably could have like figured out what to do without those tests. But there's a couple of things in there that might be of some benefit, so I typically don't order them. So this company has apparently done some sort of genetic evaluation on people and identified some special genetic quality. We have no idea what it is. And when they gave the medication to that group, the effect size was 0.55, where it was 0.44 when they gave it to just whoever. Um, we don't know what that group is. We don't know how many patients were treated in each group, or like how many responded versus didn't respond. We have like no data here. Um, but I mean, this is interesting. This is a completely new mechanism of action. This is probably going to be moving on to phase 3 trials. We have a good effect size outside of this weird genetic thing that, it's probably going to cost more, right? Because they're going to have to run the test to see if you're in the group, and then you get the med. Um, but this may be the start of that kind of stuff. And which is, we got to start somewhere. You know what I'm saying? This isn't out there yet. It may not get approved. I thought it was cool, and I wanted to tell you about it. So be on the lookout in the next few years for this selective vasopressin V1B receptor antagonist. Nobody else is talking about this. I listen to a lot of podcasts. No one has mentioned this. You're hearing this from me first. All right. I got a couple more, and we're going to wrap this up. So next, I mentioned limborexant, the DORA, the dual orexin receptor antagonist for sleep. So we have 3 DORAs, but there's a lot of these medications there's a lot of related medications that are actually in the works. And the one that is the furthest along is a medication called seltorexant. And what's cool about this one is it's not a DORA. It's not a dual orexin receptor antagonist. It is a selective orexin type 2 receptor antagonist. So the other ones do orexin type 1 and type 2. This one is selective just for type 2. I'm not exactly sure what targeting just the second type of orexin does versus the first one. The ones that we have now have kind of a variable difference between how much they affect type 1 and type 2. And I looked into this at one point to see, well, does the fact that this one does more 2 than 1, or 1 than 2, or doubles the other one on the 2, or whatever, does that make any difference? Does that have any kind of clinical application? And I could find nothing on this. But apparently, whatever company is developing this drug seems to think that just focusing on 2 may be interesting, right? So, phase 2 trial for insomnia. Once again, I don't have the data on it. All we have is that a phase 2 trial is done on insomnia, and it showed benefit. It's not surprising. The other drugs also work. So the fact that this one is similar to them, I mean, yeah, I could see how it would work. There is a phase 3 trial that's ongoing, and this is interesting. It's not for insomnia. It is for major depressive disorder adjunctive treatment, right? So somebody has, they have major depressive disorder, and they're on a med for it, and then this is going to be added an adjunctive treatment. And I'm just wondering, is it supposed to help the depression as an adjunct to depression? Is that what you're trying to imply here? Or is it just helping with the insomnia associated with the depression? In that in turn, so is it just that it's helping with insomnia, and that insomnia being helped is helping the depression? Or does it have some sort of separate independent effect on depression? Because I mean, the fact that they're saying that it's an MDD adjunctive treatment suggests to me that it's supposed to help with the depression outside of what it helps for insomnia, which I find interesting. I also don't know why. And maybe we'll find out as they give us more information. But the point is here, this is a new aura. It's a two sora, so it's not a Dora. They've called it a two sora, two hyphen sora is how it's abbreviated. A selective orexin type 2 antagonist. Um, so I don't know. I guess more to be seen on this one, but this is another one that you're hearing first from me. I've heard this nowhere else. I've dug this out for you, and I'm on a medication like this for sleep. So I guess I'm extra interested in how it might, benefit people, and whether it might be better than the duals. I don't know. Is it going to work? Is this going to be kind of a thing where like we don't really need the type 1 in there, and maybe that's causing some ill effects, and maybe being selective for type 2 is like there's some reason why we'd want to do that. Like I could find no information on that. I think we need to wait until like phase 3 trials come out and more information comes out before we learn that information, because it's just like it's not really available. And then I wanted to finish off this episode and tell you about, you know what? I'm going to talk about Kana next time. This episode's got kind of long, and I'm going to wrap it up now. And I hope you enjoyed this. Sorry it was like over an hour, but we covered a few new and interesting topics that are kind of updates that are going on. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you'll join me next time.